right, so can you please tell me your name?
Susan Gast.
Okay, Susan Gast. And can you please tell me your profession and a little bit of a brief job description?
Yes. Right now I am Associate Director for Publications for Georgia Perimeter College. I work in the Office of Marketing and Public Relations. I've been here almost 3 years. Prior to that, I was in the newspaper industry for most of my life as a reporter and editor. In my current job, I do a lot of writing, editing, speech writing, and working with just publications, whether those be in print or online. Mostly I deal with content, the photos, the words, that kind of thing.
Okay. What skills do you feel like you learned on this job, and what skills did you bring?
Well, as a newspaper reporter and editor, I had developed a lot of the skills I needed for this job.
Okay.
All the writing, the editing, the managing of people, as well as all different. You have to deal with a lot of projects at the same time simultaneously.
Yeah.
So, all the multitasking.
Tasking, yeah.
And so I think I had most of the basics that I needed for the job, but what I didn't have was the experience about how a college or university operates, and all of the how it's organized, and how all the different people have to see certain things, whereas in a newspaper you just certain editors will review it.
Okay.
But here everybody approves it. So
Okay.
yeah, but anyway, so there was some differences in that. I think the basic skills I think I already had.
Okay. And what do you feel is the most challenging part of your career, and what might be the most rewarding part?
Oh, goodness. Well, I think that the most challenging part right now is you deal with so many different groups of constituents. We're writing magazines and producing things for students, retirees, alumni, potential donors, legislators, and also all the people who work here, as well as the president, and and they all have a little bit of different perspective about what they want. So I think that that's the biggest challenge of this job, is making sure we put out a quality product and still be sensitive to all those people's needs. Balancing all of that, I think. And it can take a lot of effort.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But it's also kind of what's cool about it. And as far as rewarding, I love the newspaper business tremendously, and I had loads of fun doing it. In fact, but I love this too, and like right now I do a lot of speech writing for the president. That's something new I hadn't done. I guess I would have to say there are so many things about this job to love, because you're involved in the creative process, but you touch so many things. And like, I deal with the president's office, I deal with faculty, I deal with students, so I'm dealing with everybody across the college. But I guess the bottom line is that you feel you're learning something new every day, because you're dealing with different people, different issues, different subjects. It's generally not ever boring. So those make it rewarding. There have been times that I've met famous people, so that's rewarding in a different way. But I would say overall,
kind of seeing everything kind of come together.
Yeah, and I think anybody who's in this business is, they get a zing out of seeing something they created come to life, and so.
Yeah. And what do you feel made you choose a career path in the mass communication field?
I think it was probably because I think in high school, I didn't work for the newspaper in high school, but I worked for the yearbook staff, and I was assigned to write all the copy for the yearbook staff. And I think it was just an offhand assignment. I don't think anybody thought anything about it. But then I noticed that when I did that, then people really seemed to like it. And that made me feel good about myself. And I was like, boy, well, maybe I can write, you know. And so then when I went to college, I hadn't really declared a major, but I was drawn to the newspaper staff, started writing there, just fell in love with it, and just went on from there.
What college did you attend?
Auburn University.
Okay, great. I wanted to ask you, do you find that in your line of work that it's more important to get your education, or is it more important to kind of network and have experience? Because I know sometimes it might vary. So
I think it's both. I would say, in my experience in the newspaper industry, I don't know that you could get hired without at least a bachelor's degree. I know there were people that I worked with that had started a long time before me that didn't have that, but at the point that I went into it, I think you had to have at least a bachelor's degree. However, I think you learn
a lot more.
In the newspaper industry, I think you learned the lion's share by doing it. I mean, you might already know the theory and everything behind it, but you had to do it to really understand how to do it. In an academic setting like this, where I work at a college, I think it becomes a little more important to have, the academic degrees, because that's
it's a college setting.
It's a college.
Of course.
You got to understand that. Yeah. So I think the stakes for that rise a little bit more. I will say though that, there are certain things that you've got to learn when you're. I mean, and it's how to write grammatically, how to use Associated Press style. And those are things you just have to memorize and be tested on and stuff like that. So those were good things in college that that it helped to have gone through all that before I started.
Because you kind of carried it with you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I understand. Okay, a couple more questions and then I'll be out of your hair. What do you consider to be the top 3 qualities or skills that's most important to possess?
For this particular job, the one I'm doing now, top 3 qualities or skills. I think writing, obviously.
Yeah.
Editing and people skills. People skills
yeah,
are
I can
incredibly
imagine.
important, because you're dealing with a lot of different personalities. I deal with the president a lot, you deal with people that might be upset about something, if they see something.
I can imagine
dealing
it
with
takes
a lot of
more.
egos,
Yeah.
so, I would say people skills. I would add a 4th one, and just a sense of humor. I think you gotta.
Kind of be loose a little bit. You don't want to be tense all the time.
Right. So I think that helps a lot too. Don't take everything too seriously.
Okay. And how do you think that mass communication is changing, and what are the current trends that affect you and maybe even the industry, that like the newspaper industry and such?
Well, yeah, and I actually left the newspaper industry because it was changing so much. It really wasn't the way, and I knew that the newspaper was going to have to trim its forces, and I decided maybe now's a good time to change. But the internet's changed everything, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, it's good. We just haven't figured out how to deal with that in a good way. We figured out how, and I say we as a society, we figured out how to use the internet to get information out. Well, what nobody's figured out is how to make money to pay people who are gathering that information, to pay credible people who are gathering that information. That's where it's kind of fallen down, and they're trying to figure it out. But there's a lot of neat things that they're doing. I have a friend who used to work at the newspaper in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution with me,
Mhm.
and he now works. I don't know if you've ever heard of Patch. It's
No.
patch.com,
Okay.
and they have they created these websites for all the little towns everywhere, all over the nation.
Oh, wow.
And there'll be a lilburnpatch.com or a stonemountainpatch.com or a snellvillepatch.com.
Okay.
And he went to work for them and is now kind of moved up to be over a bunch of them. I think AOL was the one that started patch.com.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's still in the formative stages.
Yeah.
They're still trying to figure it out, but I think there's going to take a while for us to figure out. It's like the music industry, you
Yeah.
know. It's the same thing. I don't think news will ever go away. Just like music's not going to go away, but how the delivery process
definitely.
is going to change.
And I find it a lot harder to give credit where it's due.
Yeah, and I think also what scares me is you're not going to have the people watching over governments, especially the smaller governments,
Mhm.
like they used to. We would call the fourth estate the newspaper industry, because we would watch over governments, and now they've all had to trim back their staff. There aren't reporters out there
Yeah.
watching the small governments or digging down deep, and I mean, they're watching some of it, but
Not really going.
but what you do see is you do see some, citizens doing more of that and putting it online. So there's still some watchdogging going on. But it's just all in flux right now. It'll be interesting to see how it works out.
It's changing so fast.
I know, and I'm not sure if it's going to slow down. So.
Yeah. Okay, and my last but not least question is, what is a suggestion on how to prepare now for a future position in the mass communication industry?
Stay up with technology. Learn everything you can about technology, how to use it, how to even if you're not the expert on HTML coding, at least understand it enough to
be able to handle it. Yeah.
Because I think that's and that sounds easy to you right now, probably because you're a young person and you're probably already very attuned to that. But what you need to remember is think about this forever. I mean, like when you're my age, you should still be learning the new technology. And it'll be something totally different probably by then. I mean, because when I started, we were all really excited just to get computers, So I mean, it will evolve, and just learn something every day. Learn it every day, and I think it'll be fun. It's a lot of fun.
Yep, I think
what do you
I'm
want to go
ready for that
into?
ride.
Broadcast or?
Yeah. I'm looking into broadcasting. I really wanted to maybe more focused into the news anchoring industry, but it was a little bit harder for me to find somebody to interview. But I looked into the newspaper industry, but I was kind of more reluctant at the fast-paced life. It's kind of, a lot, very demanding, hours
It
upon
is.
end, staying up and making sure that you meet deadlines, and how aggressive you really have to be to get your point across and to get your stories. And I mean, I'm not sure how aggressive I can really be, so I kind of